Thank you for joining the ARPA-H Small Business Program Proposers Day. My name is Sam Gussman-Toh, and I lead the Small Business Program here at ARPA-H. So for those of you who are new to ARPA-H, we like to ground programs with what-if statements that are imagining the world we're creating. So in the Small Business Program, we imagine a world where small businesses are empowered and resourced to create the world-changing technologies that are able to reach patients in years, not decades. And you'll see that this is a reoccurring theme throughout my presentation. How are we able to do things faster? And how are we able to increase the impact of small businesses? So before I get to it, I want to briefly go over today's agenda. I'm going to give a comprehensive overview of our small business program, how it works, and what we look for in performers. Then our program managers are going to give overviews of each of their topics that are in the solicitation. Our contracting officer, Steven Snyder, will give you an overview of the solicitation process and relevant contracting details, which will be followed by a walkthrough of the solution site, which is our website that you'll use to upload your proposal materials. And finally, I'll give some very brief closing remarks before we disperse into breakout rooms. And during the breakout rooms, you'll have a chance to meet the program managers behind the technical topics and get to ask them questions about what they're looking for and what's actually in the solicitation. So my goal today is to make sure that all of you fully understand our solicitation and the proposal process. And, I promise it's not as complicated as it may seem when you first read the solicitation. Second, I want to arm you with the information that you're going to need to be successful in writing a great proposal that makes you competitive for our SBIR and STTR program. And a little context for the high-level view. We host proposers days every time we release new topics on our small business program solicitation. And we just released a new solicitation that's going to stay open for the next 5 years. So there's going to be a consistent process for how you apply for funding. Going forward, we plan to add new topics to the solicitation about twice a year. And the schedule this year got a little wonky due to the delay in congressional reauthorization of the SBIR STTR program. But going forward, we plan to release new topics about every 6 months. And before I get too far along with my presentation, I want to remind everyone that the deadline to submit solution summaries is July 10th, 2026 at 11:59 p.m. Eastern. And I know there's been some confusion about that and some conflicting messaging. So just remember, it's going to be July 10th, 2026 at 11:59 p.m. Eastern. And really, you should be submitting early so that way you avoid any potential last-minute technical issues. So our small business program is dedicated to bringing small companies into the ARPA-H portfolio. It's geared towards high-impact startups, and it's a microcosm of the full program experience. ARPA-H sets aside about 3.5% of its budget for the program. So at current levels, we have about $50 million in funding set aside each year just for small businesses. This program, though, is designed for high impact, cutting edge startups, and we have a critical focus on commercialization. We release topics that are centered on specific problems that our program managers want to solve, and we don't do open topics. Often, you'll find that our topics are actually complementary to our flagship programs, or they may even be testing out new ideas and concepts that seed future program efforts. We also only award contracts, not grants. So you're not going to be able to just draw down the funds and come back to us in 2 years with a report. You need to hit the ground running and meet rigorous technical milestones. And we're actively managing all the companies in our portfolio, both holding you accountable to meeting your milestones, but also making sure that you have the resources you need to succeed. There are a few other distinguishing features of the projects that we do in the small business program. First is scale. Our projects are intentionally scoped so the small business can reasonably tackle them. It's not going to require half a dozen different companies coming together to form a team in order to take it on. A startup could be successful by themselves or maybe with a clinical partner. And we won't, for example, launch a project that's going to require a massive nationwide clinical trial that's just way too expensive and complicated for any small business to complete on their own. The second distinguishing feature is maturity. While we still consider these projects to be ARPA hard and to have an ARPA scale impact, we select for projects that have more mature underlying technologies and have a shorter time frame for completion and commercialization than traditional ARPA-H programs. Lastly, it's the support. We know that we're working with small businesses, and we want to help you grow and succeed. So we offer dedicated commercialization support that helps our small businesses really succeed in developing products around their technologies and then bringing those technologies to market, but also more importantly, bringing those technologies and products to patients. Our ARPA-H small business program is rapidly growing, and my personal goal is to double the number of projects and performers we have in the next 12 months. So today we have 30 companies in the program, and we've made $87 million in awards. One thing I'm very proud of is that our small business program isn't like traditional government SBIR, STTR programs. We look for the best companies and the best technologies. We don't want the best proposal writers or the usual suspects. We have a diverse, non-traditional base of performers. And almost 60% of the companies are truly early stage with fewer than 10 employees. And almost 45% of our performers are actually receiving federal funding for the first time. And I know this personally because I spend so much time teaching them how to actually submit invoices to the government. So with our new solicitation, I'm really excited that we're going to be expanding the program. And I hope that in the future, we're going to see even more small businesses participating from all over the country. So I've mentioned that commercialization is a real focus of our small business program and that we offer comprehensive support to our performers. Our philosophy is that we want to teach the companies in our portfolio how to fish. We want to build their capabilities. And so we support them as they navigate these complex challenges that are required to bring a product to market. And we really want to make sure that they have access to the right expertise and experience when they need it. So we primarily provide this kind of support through our entrepreneur in residence program, which pairs our companies with seasoned professionals who have the expertise they need. And this includes many types of support, but some common ones are advising on negotiating licensing agreements and developing your IP management strategy or even filing patents. We also can review regulatory submissions and coach our companies as they prepare for pre-sub meetings. We also are able to give advice on clinical trial design. If you need to make an adjustment, how might this have future implications for the evidence that you need for regulatory submission? All these can be really impactful and help our performers plan ahead and prepare for eventual commercialization. And many of our companies strive to raise private capital at the end of their projects. So we've even helped run a boot camp to help them develop their strategy, conduct customer discovery, engage key stakeholders and opinion leaders, and ultimately to pitch to real investors. You know, we even have a former investor that's on our team who coaches the companies in our portfolio on how do you develop a good pitch and how are you going to make yourself attractive to investors. And we make strategic introductions to friendly investors, once you've matured and you've reached an appropriate level of technical development. I also want to highlight that commercialization support is a privilege. It's not an entitlement. ARPA-H isn't going to invest our resources into companies that haven't de-risked their technology yet. So we're not going to start providing you this kind of support on day one. And we're definitely not going to be giving you this kind of support if you're not meeting your technical milestones. And the third aspect of this is that you really need to pull your weight towards commercialization. It's a requirement here that you have commercialization milestones in your statement of work. And you can't offload those elements of your statement of work to our commercialization experts. They're not here to do it for you. You know, those are your responsibility. It's your company and it's your future. We're just here to help and to accelerate it. The last thing I want to add is my personal philosophy is that our goal is to exit. And while we're not taking our funding is non-dilutive, our goal is to exit by getting you to the point where you're no longer reliant on ARPA-H funding in order to bring your technology to market. You're either able to generate revenue and do it on your own, or you're able to attract private investors and able to go that route. So because many of the companies we work with are really new to the government and government contracting and the whole SBIR, STTR world, I just want to take a moment to level set the differences between an SBIR and an STTR. And I want to give a disclaimer that these policies were created by Congress and the Small Business Administration. So both programs were created by Congress to set aside R&D funding for innovative small businesses, and both have a strong emphasis on commercialization. Functionally, if you're an ARPA-H performer, you're going to have the same experience regardless of whether you're doing an SBIR or an STTR. STTRs just have a special focus on commercializing technologies that were developed in the lab, and they require a partnership with a nonprofit research institution. But in both cases, for SBIRs and STTRs, a small business needs to be the recipient of the contract, but you can have other entities working as subcontractors. For an STTR, one of those subcontracts must be with the research institution that you're working with. STTRs also have slightly different work requirements and PI requirements. The primary investigator or principal investigator must be primarily employed by the small business for SBIRs, but STTRs allow the PI to be employed by either the small business or the research institution. And STTRs also require a minimum work share between the small business and the research institution to make sure that it's a truly collaborative effort. Meanwhile, SBIR awards place limits on the total amount of work that can be outsourced by the small business to make sure that it's not just being used as a pass-through. We can also easily convert from an SBIR to an STTR if there's a research institution involved, or vice versa. So when you're applying, pick whichever makes sense to you. Companies can definitely apply as an SBIR, even if they're partnered with a research institution. So I want to also run through the different types of SBIR and STTR awards that we make. Phase 1 is the traditional starting point, and it's intended as a proof of concept type award. Typically, it's around 12 months, and we'll do it for up to $600,000. Once you receive a Phase 1, you're then eligible to receive a Phase 2 award that builds on your proof of concept to develop a viable prototype. And these are more involved projects, typically 2 to 3 years, although they definitely can be shorter for technologies like artificial intelligence. And they're usually up to $3.5 million in funding. But I do want to say $3.5 million is not a given. The scope of the effort needs to warrant the cost. Our phase 2s, we also expect to have a serious focus on commercialization. And that's why we have you build in meaningful commercialization milestones into your statement of work. So normally, you'd have to complete a phase 1 before doing a phase 2. But ARPA-H has a special direct to phase 2 authority that allows us to start with a phase 2 project if the proof of concept has been established elsewhere. And similarly, we offer a fast track option, which combines phase 1 and phase 2 into a single award. The base scope is the phase 1, and phase 2 is an option on the contract that ARPA-H can exercise. Lastly, I want to highlight that we are not soliciting proposals for phase 3 projects, as a phase 3 project is typically moving on into the production stage. So if you're familiar with SBIR and STTR awards, you're going to notice that ARPA-H's award caps are higher than traditional limits. And this is because we want to take on larger, more ambitious projects and push them further along with commercialization. So to enable this, we've gotten waivers from the Small Business Administration that allow us to make these larger awards. At ARPA-H, we believe that you should follow the path with the best technical opportunity, and you shouldn't be limited by cost. We would never want one of our companies to pursue a suboptimal approach because they're worried about trying to minimize their costs. But on the flip side, this doesn't mean that we aren't rigorous stewards of taxpayer dollars. Not everyone is going to get an award at $3.5 million. Your objectives and scope need to justify this increased cost. Bear in mind that we want to work with companies whose business model is going to be centered on the amazing technologies they're creating. We don't want to work with companies who are going to be reliant on a never-ending string of SBIR and STTR awards and who don't actually put their technologies into practice. We plan to move quickly, and we're not going to waste time with lengthy negotiations. And cost is an evaluation factor. Remember that we've received many great proposals. So if you want a surefire way to derail what is otherwise a strong technical proposal, go ahead and inflate your cost proposal. And you should also know other companies aren't going to do that. So they're going to be able to propose a larger, more aggressive statement of work than you are because you're inflating your costs. We know the tricks that you use, and we know how much things should cost. Transparently, we're never going to nickel and dime a realistic cost proposal. It's not part of our model. But we're also not going to waste our time negotiating an unrealistic cost proposal. So I want to briefly share the eligibility requirements for SBIR STTR funding. This is determined by policy set by the Small Business Administration, and you can read the full eligibility requirements on our solicitation or on the ARPA-H website. You'll need a valid UEID when you submit your full proposal, and you're also going to need a valid Small Business Control ID number. You should remember that these can take time, and you might need paper copies of some documents to get these. So make sure you work on this starting today. Don't procrastinate. This isn't something you can just do in an afternoon. You're also going to need to upload the certifications that I've listed on this slide along with your proposal, so that way you're confirming your eligibility. Also, per SBA policy, all proposals must go through a foreign risk assessment that screens for affiliations and ties to companies and countries of concern. This is something that we'll take care of once you've been selected for an award, but we need to collect a foreign disclosure form up front so that we're able to do this. If you get flagged, you'll be provided with a general explanation of what caused the issue. And the NIH does all the foreign risk assessments for all of HHS's SBIR, STTR programs. So you can find out more about foreign risk assessments at their website using the links provided on this slide, and they'll be shared on our website. Okay, now on to the application process. It's a two-stage process, and our contracting officer, Stephen Snyder, is going to speak in more detail about the selection process. If you have any questions about it, I suggest that you attend his breakout session this afternoon. The first stage of our process is a solution summary, which is a 4 to 6 page technical summary of your project and approach. This first stage exists to save you, industry, wasted effort preparing a lengthy proposal for a project that doesn't have a realistic chance of receiving funding. And frankly, it's to help us make sure that we give you decisions in a timely and reasonable manner. The second stage is a technical pitch, and it requires considerably more preparation. For it, you need to provide a technical presentation and you need to be prepared for Q&A. You also have to give a cost proposal, a task description document that becomes your statement of work. You need to complete a Gantt chart and a key personnel worksheet. And during this Q&A pitch stage, you're going to give a 20-minute presentation on what your project is, followed by 30 minutes of rigorous technical Q&A with our program managers. And this is going to allow us to hash out technical details and subsequently reduce negotiation timelines. But it also helps us ensure that we're only funding performers who truly understand the technical foundations of their projects. After stage one, solution summaries, we send out notices that encourage or discourage the submission of a full proposal package for stage two. This is non-binding, and you do have the right to submit a full proposal package. But you really should take discourages seriously. We receive many proposals, and based on the interest we've received for this solicitation, it's going to be extremely competitive. As a general rule of thumb, we typically invite 4 or 5 times the number of proposals to advance than we're probably going to fund. So if you receive a discourage, it's because we really don't think that it's likely we'll end up funding your approach due to something at a fundamental level. If you receive an encourage, you'll have about 4 weeks to prepare your materials, which will be due 2 to 4 weeks before the pitch takes place. The encourage letter will contain the relevant information regarding your submission and associated deadlines. So, getting a contract with ARPA-H is only the beginning. Now it's time to talk about performance. Down selection is built into the ARPA model. Risk, uncertainty, and failure are inherent in R&D, especially when undertaking ARPA-style projects. We manage risks by taking multiple bets, and we expect that many will fail. So we end up cutting performers that aren't meeting their technical milestones, but we also rigorously will down select. So just squeaking by isn't a guarantee that you're going to proceed. And we're not doing this to be mean. We do this because we want to concentrate our resources into the approaches with the highest likelihood of success. Our goal is fundamentally to get the taxpayer the best possible ROI. So during performance, you'll work closely with your ARPA-H program manager, who will provide technical oversight, advice, and support. And PMs closely monitor performance and will independently verify that technical milestones have been met. But PMs aren't just there to look over your shoulder. They're also your greatest collaborators and advocates. They'll help you with everything from troubleshooting technical issues to finding clinical partners. I even know one program manager who called up an unresponsive IRB that was causing delays for their performer. She gave them an earful and helped get the project back on schedule. So this is our initial timeline for making awards for the first round of topics that we posted. Solution summaries are due on July 10th, 11:59 p.m. Eastern. And our goal is to make these awards in the first quarter of 2027. I'll admit that this is a conservative timeline, given that we're using a new solicitation and process. In practice, I hope we'll be able to do things faster, and especially faster in future iterations. So I want to share some quick do's and don'ts and best practices. I won't go through each of these, but a few things to consider. Propose rigorous, ambitious milestones and make sure they're quantifiable. They shouldn't leave room for ambiguity or interpretation. And you need to make sure that you propose both technical and commercialization milestones. You should also be ambitious, even if it's a riskier technical approach. We like big ideas, and we don't want incremental advances. If there are risks or uncertainties, you should flag them. Show us that you know what challenges you're going to face. Otherwise, we think that you don't understand how difficult an undertaking you've proposed. You should also show us that you have a plan that leads to a viable product that's going to improve the lives of patients, and that you're not going to be perpetually reliant on government funding. Here I've also mapped out a few specific issues that we see for each of the proposal documents. Again, I won't go through all of these, but it'll be included in the slides we send out to all the attendees. First, do yourself a favor. Keep your solution summary organized. There is nothing worse than evaluating a proposal where someone decided to sprinkle in content throughout the proposal. It makes it impossible to find, and it's going to get missed because we're reviewing 50 to 100 solution summaries. And when it comes to your technical presentation, please, please, please don't send the sales guy. It doesn't go well during the technical Q&A, and you should know the Q&A is technical. Make sure whoever you send is able to have a thorough technical discussion about your proposed approach and is able to make decisions if pivots are required. And I really don't want to get too into the weeds here, but we always get this question about the work share requirements and fee limits. So what's on the slide is going to be familiar to you if you've worked with NIH because we've adopted the same policies from their SBIR STTR program. Briefly, fee is capped at 7%. We also do have work share requirements that place limits on how much work can be subcontracted by the small business that's receiving the SBIR STTR award. This is calculated using the dollar value of the subcontracts and the total award. For SBIRs, the maximum that can be subcontracted on a phase 1 is 33%, and the maximum for a phase 2 is 50%. For STTRs, there is an expectation that both the small business and the research institution are participating in the project. So they have a minimum of 40% of the work being done by the small business and 30% of the work being done by a research institution. There is an important nuance here that pertains to CROs and fee-for-service organizations, also considering CDMOs. These are organizations that operate in a competitive environment and provide standardized services to many different customers. So, for example, think tox studies or stability studies or basic manufacturing services. Because these are routine, standardized services that don't substantially direct the scientific work of the project, when we calculate your work share requirements, we don't count them towards the amount that is being subcontracted, and they won't push you over the limits. So moving along, I want to review the timeline. Q&A from today will be posted on June 25th, and solution summaries will be due on July 10th at 11:59 p.m. Eastern. And again, don't wait to submit until the last minute. Submit early. Every deadline, we have companies who wait until the last minute, and they run into technical problems and miss the deadline. And unfortunately, we can't consider their proposals. Don't be that person. If you move on to stage 2, our notional deadline for full proposal packages is September 9th. This is a target that we have for planning purposes. The real deal deadline will be included in the response letters that we send after stage 1. As I mentioned earlier, we posted the solicitation with an initial 7 topics. In a moment, you'll get brief overviews of the topics by the program managers, and you'll have a chance to meet them and ask questions during the breakout rooms at noon Eastern. You'll see that, with the exception of the lineage topic, all these topics are focused on solving a specific problem. ARPA-H does not have a general open topic for SBIRs and STTRs. Our plan is to release new topics periodically, about every 6 months. And while our timeline got a little wonky this year because of the reauthorization delays, we will have a standard cadence going forward, beginning with the next set of topics that we release. Thank you again for attending our Proposers Day and your interest in the ARPA-H Small Business Program. You can learn more about our program at our website and access the solicitation via the link and QR code on this slide. And if you want to stay up to date with the latest releases of new ARPA-H funding opportunities, including any future SBIR or STTR topics, The best way to do that is by signing up for the ARPA-H Vitals newsletter via our website and by following ARPA-H on LinkedIn. So, without further ado, I'd like to invite Kate, our first program manager, to give us an overview of her topic.
I'm Kate Arnold. I'm an OBGYN, and I've been at ARPA for about a year and a half. I come from a FQHC, federally qualified health center background, so largely caring for Medicaid and uninsured populations. So the mission of ARPA Health to improve care for everyone resonates strongly with me, and you'll see that emphasis in my programs and topics. So I'm going to start by emphasizing topic 1, which is focused on the development of an annual test to inform women about their future fertility. So at its core, this topic addresses a major gap in women's health. Today, infertility is just identified after a couple has tried unsuccessfully to conceive for a year or more. Until then, we don't have a lot of guidance for women, and we don't have any personalized, clinically useful information we can tell them about how their fertility may change over time. And that matters because women now are delaying childbearing and fertility is declining. But really, at this point, age is the best predictor we have. Existing ovarian reserve measures like AMH, FSH, estradiol, follicle counts can help with IVF prediction, but they don't reliably predict spontaneous fertility or help understand a woman when her fertility may end. So in other words, we're just lacking that practical, actionable test that could help women understand not just her fertility today, but the trajectory of her fertility in the years ahead. So that's the opportunity here. We're looking for new biomarker-based approaches that can evaluate a woman's fertility status and predict her future fertility decline in a way that's objective, evidence-backed, affordable, and clinically usable. This topic is incredibly challenging. Our vision is an annual test that could be used in primary care or at home to give women that information. Strong solutions would include biospecimen-based tests, imaging, device-based diagnostics, or wearables, as long as they align with the target product profile. Importantly, we want solutions that are agnostic to menstrual phase and contraceptive use, and we want them to be feasible in urban and rural settings. I also want to talk about what's not in scope. So what's not in scope would be things that improve or predict IVF success. We're also not interested in things that would just never be scalable. So like invasive procedures, cumbersome workflows, things that are incredibly high cost, or direct to consumer, because again, we really want something that can reach everyone, not just those with the means to purchase these tests. In phase 1, we're looking for performers to identify biospecimen sources and testing methodologies and discover at least 5 candidate biomarkers. And then in phase 2, the bar goes up and teams should establish thresholds for fertile, subfertile, and infertile states. We're looking for 90% sensitivity and specificity, and we're looking for results in 15 minutes. The team should also have a clear plan for FDA regulatory pathway, including pre-submission engagement, and show a path towards insurance coverage and reimbursement. Again, it's incredibly ambitious. We're looking for a test that would be less than $50, minimally invasive, easy to interpret, rapid turnaround, all this kind of moonshot ideas of what future care could look like. So we are really trying to change care from looking at one right now where fertility assessment is hindsight to looking at something that can be predictive. So we're not going to wait for conception to fail. We're going to give women actionable information so that they can make their choices. So if your technology can do that in a low-cost, scalable, clinically relevant way, we very much want to hear from you. And lastly, I do want to mention you will see this as a priority from ARPA. We are hosting an event at BIO where we'll be discussing innovations that could help develop treatments beyond IVF. And with that, I will pass it over to Jean-Hubert.
Great, thanks, Kate. And hi, everyone. I'm Jean-Hubert, and thanks so much for being here and for your interest in partnering with ARPA-H to change the future of healthcare. One of the huge problems we're faced with is a shortage of surgeons in general, but in particular neurosurgeons. And this leads to mortality and morbidity that could otherwise be avoided. And access is a big issue, not only in rural areas, as you might expect, But even in big urban areas, access is an issue because it's nearly impossible to get timely and optimal neurosurgical care. So this problem could affect any of us should we ever need neurosurgery. And the solution we're aiming for here is increasing access by taking a key step towards fully automated neurosurgery. And this might sound crazy, but the current developments in rapid AI and microrobotics make this goal worth considering and we believe worth pursuing. And a key enabler to fully automated surgery, neurosurgery, would be a physically accurate virtual human brain, which is the focus of this SBIR. And what we foresee is in combination with generative AI models, for which we've seen fantastic results in other fields, having a mechanistic-based model based on the physical properties of the human brain would be a fantastic complement to that and a huge enabler of achieving our goal. So that's why the focus of this SBIR is really on accurately in the virtual brain reproducing the anatomy, the tissue mechanics, and the imaging properties of a human brain. So think anatomy, there's very cellular areas, there's very fibrous areas, there's the vasculature, there's the meninges, there's the skull. So all these things need to be considered and included in modeling the access and surgery within the human brain. I won't go over all the metrics and milestones here. They're pretty well described in the ISO that is now available. The final version is now available, as Sam mentioned. So what I would emphasize, though, is these are not so much suggestions as requirements. So we really want, in order to achieve a useful virtual model that can be used to train AI and potentially human surgeons as well, because there's different commercial applications to this product, and that would be one of them as well. So rather than go through those metrics, I'll just emphasize that they're really minimally what's needed to get a useful enough virtual brain to train these systems on. There are things that we are not looking for. So other parts of the body, simulating those is not of interest for this SBIR. Also, there are endovascular procedures that might be applicable to the brain, and we're not interested in modeling those. And finally, this has come up. It's not written on this slide here, but when we talk about modeling the brain, for a lot of people, the first thing that comes to mind is electrophysiological or connectomic simulations or simulations of brain function. And that also falls outside the purview of this SBIR. So very briefly, phase one is to develop the virtual brain with all the properties as outlined, and then to simulate existing neurosurgical tools to do simulated procedures in that brain, totally in silico. And then if successful, phase two would bring this to the real world, where tools that were automated and trained in the virtual world would now be exercised in preclinical models in the real world. So that's all I have. Who is next? I'm not seeing the full list of slides.
Jean, it's Cal. I'm next.
Cal, okay, great. Take it away, Cal.
All right. Thank you, Jean. Thank you all for joining us as we introduce Uniplat, the universal platform for living adaptive toxin removal. This SBIR opportunity is designed to spark bold innovation at the intersection of synthetic biology and health protection. Every day, Americans are exposed to low levels of harmful compounds from food, water, and air. These include additives and other food-derived metabolites that are generally considered waste, but toxic if built up, including heavy metals such as lead, arsenic, and mercury, and chemical contaminants from plastics, pesticides, and aerosols. While daily exposure may seem small, the cumulative effect contributes to inflammation, metabolic dysfunction, and long-term chronic disease. Regulatory changes can help exposure, but they take time to work their way through supply chains. However, we need solutions that can safely intervene at the individual now. Engineered microbes used for probiotic and environmental applications already show real potential. They can convert harmful food-based toxins into neutral or beneficial products, or sequester heavy metals before absorption. However, today's approaches run into predictable limitations. Single-strain systems can become metabolically strained as number of program functions increase. Alternatively, multi-strain consortia face ecological instability, unpredictable interactions, and batch-to-batch variability that make them difficult to regulate and scale for human use. These challenges limit our ability to build reliable, adaptable, and commercial-ready solutions for multi-toxin removal at the individual level. Uniplat seeks to overcome these challenges. Performers will be tasked with establishing a single-strain chassis that is metabolically optimized for two-plex minimum toxin elimination while performing in select relevant biological environments such as gastric acid or intestinal fluid, ultimately for human use applications. Teams must also select two of the three toxin categories, being food-based toxins, heavy metals, or chemical contaminants. The selected categories will serve as the foundation for platform development, and selections must be supported by clear connections to chronic disease relevance as described in the solicitation for 4 toxins in total. Phase 1 will serve as early proof of concept for demonstrated toxin removal capabilities. Performers will be tasked with delivering a single strain that has optimized metabolic network capable of providing robust single toxin removal for the 4 selected toxin targets, and demonstrate modularity and consistent performance across multiple batch preparations. In phase 2, teams will advance towards multiplex capabilities, demonstrating simultaneous removal of 2 or more toxins simultaneously within a single engineered strain. They should ensure modularity, genetic stability, intact safety features, and reproducibility. We also encourage performers to use phase 2 to further de-risk their platforms, such as safety testing and other activities that help establish a pathway towards commercialization. Additional deliverables aimed at strengthening commercialization readiness are welcome, as long as they remain within the scope of the topic and will advance the platform. A natural question is, am I the right fit for this topic? If you are a small business seeking to build the next generation of engineered microbial solutions for human health applications, then the answer is yes. We also welcome teams that can translate lessons from environmental toxin removal into clinically relevant therapeutic or probiotic platforms for individual use. If you already have an engineered strain with toxin removal activity, Uniplat encourages you to build on it, as long as you meaningfully advance the strain towards the goals of this initiative. Finally, Uniplat is about more than toxin removal. These platforms may eventually support applications in environmental remediation, biomanufacturing, agriculture, or next-generation therapeutics. We believe the time is right to shape an emerging market for living bacterial therapeutics and advanced probiotics that bring engineered biology into everyday health protection. And with that, let me turn it back over to Kate Arnold.
Thank you, Cal. So I'm back for topic 4, which is about addressing one of our most urgent and transformative opportunities in developing the first curative, durable, non-surgical therapy for endometriosis. So in my mind, as a clinician, I think patients and clinicians are real tired of birth control being the prescription for everything that's wrong. And so we are really looking for new options. We know that endometriosis is a major disease affecting 10 to 15% of women globally, more than 10 million in the United States. We know that it causes chronic inflammation, severe pain, infertility, disability, organ damage, and diseases across multiple body systems. But it's still taking too long for diagnosis, and our treatments are still too limited. We know that hormonal therapies just provide temporary symptom relief and have side effects and may not work for women long term. Surgery is the gold standard, but obviously that's invasive, access is limited, and resources can be a challenge. Also, recurrence continues to be a challenge with any treatment. So ARPA is not looking for another symptom-based approach. What we're looking for is something fundamentally different, a first of its kind, non-surgical therapy that addresses the root cause of the disease and has the potential to be curable and durable. So what we want are solutions that can reduce lesion size, deactivate endometriosis tissue, and or prevent regrowth, ideally in a way that leads to long-lasting therapeutic benefit. Just as importantly, your approach must be specific. It must target these lesions without causing harmful effects elsewhere in the body. We're open to bold ideas here that could include targeted nanoparticles, localized anti-estrogen approaches confined to lesions, lesion shrinking therapeutics, fibrosis remodeling strategies, or other non-invasive delivery concepts. In terms of routes of administration, it can be oral, topical, IV, sub-Q, even potentially like through the fallopian tubes to intraperitoneal. We're open to similar approaches. But what we don't want is invasive surgery. So it should be something that can be done outside of the operating room. We're not interested in broad hormonal suppression that pushes patients into premature menopauses and causes systemic harm. We're also not interested in therapies that only treat symptoms without changing the disease itself. For phase 1, we're looking for clear proof of concept. So that includes demonstrating lesion reduction in vitro or in vivo, validating your delivery method, that it actually reaches the target tissue, and defining a credible regulatory pathway. A strong phase 1 should aim to show at least 50% reduction in the lesion area. For phase 2, the bar goes up. We want to demonstrate efficacy in an advanced in vitro model, show durability, and establish safety. Lastly, you should be positioned to submit for FDA regulatory authorization. The bottom line is that if you have a credible path towards a non-surgical, durable, disease-modifying, and potentially curative therapy for endometriosis, we want to hear from you. I will say, please listen to the beginning part of this if you missed it. I think Sam and Rafid did a fantastic job of laying out exactly how ARPA works with small businesses and the relationship between program managers and their performers. It's very different from anywhere else, I think. And so please make sure that you're listening to that. We really want to be your best advocate. And at the same time, we have very high standards that are milestone-based approaches. So I look forward to speaking with some of you in the breakout session. And with that, I will pass it over to the man himself, Sam.
Thanks so much, Kate. I really appreciate it. And everybody, I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about the lineage topic. So, I run the small business program here at ARPA-H. I'm not one of our program managers. I'm not out there launching programs, but this is the topic that I wrote. And it's really intended to help bridge the gap between the technologies that are being funded and developed by ARPA-H and, successful commercialization and being able to get to patients. Just like any technology that's out there, ARPA-H's technologies, the valley of death is a real concern, and it's something we want to make sure that we're preparing for and we have the means to support them and help them get through it. This is the closest ARPA-H has to an open topic, but it's not really an open topic. It's specifically scoped so that only performers who have, or only companies that have previously worked on ARPA-H programs, either as a prime or a subcontractor, or are spinning out from a performer. So maybe an academic lab that's spun out a startup, but it's commercializing that technology, are the only ones who are eligible for it. And again, the focus here is really for us to be able to help them make meaningful progress towards commercialization. And so these projects can take many forms, right? One might be that, they've developed this great proof of concept and you need to do an initial pilot to prove that it works to hospital systems and get that economic evidence you need to be able to start doing sales, right? So that way you can prove that there's an ROI. Or maybe it's like helping you do the clinical work that you need to be able to be de-risked so that you have the evidence needed to attract private investors, right? And then you can go all the way. So that's really the types of projects that we're looking for here. It's also open to any companies that participated in an ARPA-H funded challenge event and made it to the final round. You're also eligible to propose for the technology that you created. It's not intended to be used to kind of just augment existing work that's being done on a ARPA-H program or to help commercialize a technology that, you already had or was developed elsewhere, right? It's specifically for technologies that were originated from ARPA-H programs and efforts. One thing I will note is that the way this is written, small business program performers, so current SBIR and STTR recipients are eligible to apply and participate for it. But the SBIR and STTR program affords many different flexible authorities that we can use to help commercialize, from sequential phase 2s to commercialization readiness pilot to the commercialization assistance program, and even the brand new strategic breakthrough award, which would allow to award up to $30 million, right? And so to any current SBIR and STTR performers who are interested in this, I'd say you really wouldn't need to apply because we'd already have the tools we need to give you this type of support that's already available with a lot less paperwork and headache. So if you kind of fall into that category, you should talk to your program manager. To be successful here, like I will say, I underestimated how much interest there would be around this topic, but hindsight's 2020. And so to be successful here, you can't just propose an open-ended R&D project. You really need to be articulating what your strategy is to become self-sufficient and how this is making meaningful progress towards it, right? I like to say, what is the commercialization inflection point that you're trying to achieve? That point at which you're going to be able to have de-risked your technology so that you can get private investment, or that you'll be able to begin selling your technology or even licensing it to other partners, right? Transition takes many shapes and forms. But what is that point that you're trying to achieve, and what's the pathway to get there? And what is the resources and support that you need to hit to get there? It does need to involve an R&D component, though, right? This isn't just going to pay for your IP filing fees, right? Or pay for, it's not just going to pay for a regulatory consultant. You do have to be doing meaningful work as part of the topic. So you do need both technical milestones and commercialization milestones. It'll be really important. Another aspect of this is that you will continue working with your program manager. They'll be your kind of sponsor for this. So it's really important that you talk with them, and they need to be on board for you to be able to do this. I'm really excited. This is kind of a first of its kind, as far as I know, and I really can't wait to see how this goes. And I just can't wait to see all the proposals that we get for it. So I want to thank everyone again for the time today, and I'm going to turn it over to Yoram to talk about topic 6.
Thanks, Sam, and thanks everybody for attending. I think by now you've probably gotten a sense for the depth, breadth, and ambition, really, of my program manager colleagues as they think up scientific solutions, technology-based solutions to pressing healthcare needs, and then by extension, of course, ARPA-H and in the environment here and the thought process. My own background is as an immunologist and a systems biologist, so I tend to view diseases as a system, and that really informed this topic, topic 6, a rapid comprehensive diagnostic test for multi-system autoimmune disease. So as I just noted, autoimmune disease is a systemic and systems disease with multiple organ-level manifestations. Patient assessment and treatment often lags, and lags because there is a lack of appreciation or an understanding of it, of this disease, this multifaceted disease as a systems process. And so what we're looking for in topic 6 is a novel rapid diagnostic test that is able to interrogate the system, right? And when we think of a system, we're really thinking about multiple tissues and that are impacted by this terrible disease. So the way we're going to attack that is in the context of either a phase 1 or direct to phase 2 fast track proposals. And what we're looking for is rapid, easy to use assays that would use readily available samples that could be done by primary care physicians and enable rapid referral to specialists. Because the reality of it is, similar to some of the things my colleagues have talked about, there is a lack of access to the sort of specialists that are typically best able to really understand this multi-system nature of autoimmune disease. So these assays have to be, again, it's an ambitious topic. They must embrace speed because often it takes years until a final diagnosis right now is obtained for someone with autoimmune disease. And we'd like to get towards real-time patient insights because some of the assays may have to be done in environments where it's not feasible or practical for a patient to come back a month later or even potentially a week later. These assays should be at a cost that's at most 50% of current standards. So we think that that's at around 3,000. So we're looking for about half that. Importantly, what's not in scope are diagnostics which don't look at the disease in a systems way. That is, they don't yield tissue-specific information across multiple tissues. In phase 1, it's a prototyping phase. We're looking to be able to detect and differentiate among these immunoinflammatory stress signatures in at least 2 different tissues or a biofluid that directly interrogates those tissues. We're looking for a time to actionable diagnostic results within about a month of sample acquisition and a cost of around $3,000, which is, again, where the state of the art is right now. In phase 2, things get more ambitious in a context of validation and translation. We'd like to detect and differentiate between stress and inflammatory signatures in at least 4 different tissues and organs. And we now make it a faster actionable time, as I said, aiming to about 1 week and ideally faster. And then the cost of this prototype being demonstrated to be somewhere in that $1,500 range. So I hope you got a sense for what it is that we're asking for. I look forward to also taking your Q&As in the breakout sessions later. And now I'll turn this over to my colleague, Ryan Spittler. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Shiram, and really excited to have everybody here today talk about my topic, versatile bioadhesives. And as the name implies, we're not asking for kind of run-of-the-mill surgical glues, which already are hard to do, but something that's more versatile. And we were also looking at bioadhesives, so something that's more thinking about biocompatibility and oftentimes, has some kind of degradation over time. We really want to develop these because there are many current limitations in the medical implementation of these that have made them high risk and oftentimes get them used less. Sometimes it's confined to surface level interactions. It has trouble with, whether it's wet or, certain pressures and loads. And I think there's also potential for vulnerability to contamination. So there's a number of, no shortage of problems to solve here, but I think the outcomes can really help us in having, more less invasive ways of, correcting tissue level injuries, for example, improving outcomes for wound healing, and just really having, more solutions for, what may be to come. So I'm a bioengineer. One of my programs is to bioprint organs, and that might take a different geometry. It might take different biomechanics and materials. And having such a glue may actually make this more implementable as well. And so it's not exclusively for this, but just try to get everybody thinking out of the box and what could be possible, given the amazing, I think, formulations that the folks here are thinking about. And so I think the challenge here is to what we really want is something truly versatile. So obviously most of the surgical glues are very optimized to a particular indication, and that makes it easier to engineer for. We're looking for find the balance of, can you make something that can be more versatile across various tissues and applications? And then the challenge and opportunity here is striking that balance of something that can be truly versatile by coming up with a platform level type of technology as opposed to a single use technology. And so the types of things that we're looking at are can we adhere to really wet or moving surfaces? So can we adhere to dynamic surfaces like the heart, or wet surfaces that would be hard to typically adhere for? Be able to have the kind of strength to be able to stretch, but also be able to match with biomechanics as necessary. Think about how things could degrade. So what would be that degradation pattern, and can you tune that? And then the ability to do more than just glue. Can you have local drug depots that could either administer some kind of thinkings from antibiotics to biologics? And I think the beauty of what we're offering here is we're not specifying you have to do these things. I'm giving you full creativity to address the problem in the way that you're uniquely strong to address. And then, of course, we want to make sure this is easy to administer, so it'll be used in the future. So there could be injectable, sprayable. I'm open to whatever justification makes the most sense. What we don't want are things that are going to be cost prohibitive, that can't be scaled up, or that can be toxic. I mean, I think the toxicity has been something, especially for the synthetically created glues, that have been really challenging for folks. And you can be creative. I think over the years, you've seen a lot of bio-inspired formulations, and that's certainly something that's encouraged in terms of part of the creativity. So we imagine this could be some solutions that can really go after things like I was mentioning, like wound repair, but really that can be robust for tissue anastomoses, sealing hemorrhages, or even air leaks. So things would be very challenging to be able to do. But just to show the versatility of what you could be creating. In phase one, we basically make sure that the formulation is working, and to test those in 2 distinct tissues to show kind of the versatile and platform capability, to be able to show it's biocompatible in vitro and small animals, and then make sure that there's a clinically deployable format for the delivery. Once assuming that those things are working, we want to see up to GMP level practices of being able to produce the materials, and that has a good shelf life. And it should exceed, this shouldn't be a repurposed glue that you already have. You should be, raising the bar. What can this is your chance to go above and beyond what typically you would want to do as a company that can expand the capabilities of the whole field. So how can you exceed the current standards and be able to show this in a large relevant animal model? And then lastly, to be able to show that this is also scalable and have this set up for a preclinical data package that supports the regulatory and reimbursement pathways, as you'll see in the solicitation. So really look forward to a discussion in the breakout room for topic 2. And with that, I'll turn it over to Steven Snyder to go over the acquisition and business overview. Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan, and hi, everyone. My name is Steven Snyder, and I'm the contracting officer for this requirement. The biggest thing I want to beat into everyone's heads today is read through the entire BAA. Read it once, read it twice. If you have a question, read it again. All the information you're going to need is going to be in there. So with that being said, the current topics that are open for solution summaries and proposals, the stage 1 solution summaries will be due July 10th. And we will update the BAA with that noon timing that Sam mentioned earlier. So you'll see an amendment to that sometime in the near future. As you just heard, we've gone through the 7 research topics. These will be updated periodically, so I encourage everyone to continue to monitor sam.gov to see what new initiatives are coming, what new topics are coming, and if anything has changed in general. So not applicable until next fiscal year, but there is a new maximum number of proposal submissions across all HHS operating divisions. So that will start in October of this year. That number is 9. So if you propose, 6 times before and you propose to us, ARPA-H would be your 7, then you'd only have 2 left for that fiscal year and so on and so forth. And I believe that number resets every fiscal year. And I saw a couple questions in the chat about this. So proposers may submit a proposal to multiple topics. The thing that I want to talk about here is we will not fund duplicative effort. So I would highly discourage submitting the same exact proposal for 2 different topics. So for the submission selection process, there's going to be 2 stages. So stage 1 is your solution summary submission, which that is the one that is due July 10th. You will want to utilize the attachments that are listed out on sam.gov. So we've provided all the templates that you'll need for both your solution summary submission and your proposal submission. For your stage 1 solution summary, you'll utilize that attachment G or the solution summary template. And again, the way that this is going to work is that we'll send out letters once we have closed out the solution summary timeline and we've had a chance to review, and then we'll send encouraged, discouraged letters after that point. As another note here, we're only going to evaluate timely and conforming submissions. So any solution summaries, submitted after July 10th will not be considered. So the due date for the proposals and technical presentations has not been set yet because we need to conduct our review of the solution summaries first. Right now, that anticipated date is early September, but please continue to monitor sam.gov for an update on that because that is an anticipated date, not a hard date. In line with stage 2, regardless if you receive an encourage or discourage, you can submit for a stage 2 proposal. However, we do recommend that only encourages submit as they're more likely to be selected. So all the instructions for proposal creation are in section 3 of the solicitation. And all the submission information, so where you would submit to, page limits, things like that, are in section 4. And then how we're going to evaluate your submissions are in section 5 of the BAA. And then just kind of as an ending note here, your solution summaries, your proposals are going to be independently reviewed and evaluated. They're not going to be, it's not a comparison. You're not going up against each other. It's going to be against the topic and the evaluation criteria in the BAA. And then we will strive to get notifications out as quickly as possible. Obviously, our timelines are going to be driven by the volume of submissions that we have, because we want to be able to provide detailed feedback when we can. So again, stage 1 solution summaries, you'll use the solution submissions portal for this. This is all found in the BAA as well. So again, read through the BAA in its entirety. Our review will not begin until we have received all solution summaries after the deadline. So after the 10th of July is when we will start conducting our reviews. The technical team will then conduct the reviews, document feedback, and notifications for encourage, discourage letters will go out at that point. For stage 2, it'll be very similar. You'll submit your proposal package by the deadline to the solution site, and then our reviews will begin after that deadline has passed. So we will not conduct reviews prematurely. The way that this will work is we'll conduct an administrative review. So does it adhere to the format requirements? Was it submitted on time? Do we have all the templates? Do we have all the documents that we need? And does it comply with the technical requirements? You'll then be evaluated, as I said before, in section 5 against the criteria in section 5 of the BAA. And the tech team will make selection recommendations at that point. And you will, once we've evaluated everybody, you'll receive a notification of whether you've been selected or not selected for potential award. So I'm not going to go in depth here because the BAA is going to have all the information you need on this, but we do have 5 evaluation criteria. So the first one is technical merit. Does your approach, does your proposed capability meet the objectives of the topic, and is it a complete approach? 2 is the technical novelty. Is it innovative? Is it highly ambitious? Is it ARPA hard? Team and relevant experience. This is just, do you have the right people at the right place at the right time to complete this work? And criteria 4 is your path to impact and health outcomes. Do you understand a pathway to get this across the finish line? Do you understand the pathway to get this to a commercialization inflection point? And then your 5th evaluation criteria is going to be the cost. So is this reasonable for what you're proposing to do? And does it reflect a complete and thorough understanding of the goals and objectives of the topic? So my final thoughts, again, read through the BAA, read through the BAA, read through the BAA. Non-conforming submissions or late submissions will not be considered. We will not evaluate, and they will automatically be non-selectable. If after reading through the BAA and the FAQs, after the question deadline has passed, you can always submit questions to the Q&A portal. So continue to monitor cm.gov and the ARPA-H website. So I anticipate that there will be periodic amendments to this BAA to cover an array of things, administrative changes, topic changes, things of that nature. So I highly encourage everyone to continue to monitor the posting as we move forward in this process. And then if you haven't already, please register for the ARPA-H submission portal, and please also make sure you have an active sam.gov registration. Both of these are required for before stage 1 submissions, and these have the potential to take time, especially with sam.gov. We don't have any control on what happens on their end, so please get this done as soon as possible. And then for dates and deadlines, again, stage 1 solution summaries are due on July 10th by noon. The anticipated stage 2 due dates, again, anticipated. This is not final. This is certainly going to change. We're anticipating that will be due September, early September timeframe. And so monitor sam.gov and the BAA to see when that final date will be set. So if you have any questions, the question deadline is June 25th. And make sure you're submitting those to the Q&A submission portal. And we will be providing answers to questions after the 25th of June. And so with that, I want to hand it over to another Stephen to go over an overview and demonstration of the solution site. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Stephen Special, the other Stephen here with the group of presenters. It's nice to see such wonderful participation here, and we are excited about this, and it looks like there's excitement from your end as well. With this, I only have about 15 minutes. It's really just to give you all on the business side of the house some housekeeping tips, some helpful insights as far as what will help you complete the submission for this first phase that we're talking about. So you must use the solution site. You've heard that term several times already at the intro, and then just recently here with Stephen. So we just want to give you all some helpful insights and tips for that, as far as what's required, what it looks like, what options you have. And then I'm going to spend the back end of my time actually demoing through here to go through the process so you can see how to log in, what the site looks like, and what types of required elements and attachments are there, just so you can kind of see what you're going to be getting into for what's required. So thank you, Sam, for advancing. Not to say this too many times, I know Stephen just said it 3 or 4, but yes, read the solicitation first. So if you are excited and you've received this information, for this session, I'm really talking to more of the administrative folks, the ones that will be pushing the buttons behind the scenes, assuming once all of the submission documents and information are in hand. So you all need to focus on the key part, which is the technical solution that we're all excited about. So we're just trying to make it as easy as possible with this to make sure that you can complete the actual submission as swiftly as possible. And I will just mention, ARPA-H has spent a lot of time and effort to this solution site that I'll demo in just a second. We tried to make it as user-friendly as possible. We've done several customer experience initiatives where we've taken feedback from the proposer community. So all that has gone in here to where we've tried to make it as low of a barrier as possible to where you all can hopefully spend most of your time worrying about the great ideas and technical solutions rather than trying to force a submission through a online platform. So just to reiterate a few more things, that UEI and SAM.gov, we did mention that, so don't rush to the solution site. We do have the QR code here for both SAM.gov and the solution site. So when you are ready to go to the solution site, knowing that we've told you you need that UEI if you don't already have one, and you need that SBC, that Small Business Control ID, you need both of those elements before you can actually progress through to submit that solution summary. So don't get excited, go too fast here. Just make sure you have those proper registrations done because they are necessary. So talking about the solution site, it is one added piece. So this is specific to ARPA-H. This is not tied to NIH. It's not tied to the higher levels with Health and Human Services. This is ARPA-H's custom solution site. Some of you, if you've applied for other R&D separate opportunities outside of this, like some of our program managers that have briefed before, those submissions have also had to go through this solution site. So the key reason being here, we're not just trying to have a different website or to make it difficult for folks to go do additional registrations and submissions. Once you have submitted through an ARPA-H opportunity through this site, a lot of your information is saved as far as your location for your entity, your key personnel, addresses, etc. So once you get through that first initial profile creation and submission, a lot of your information is saved in there. So it makes it more efficient for your follow-on submissions, whether you do multiple submissions for this particular effort with the various topics, or if you come back and want to be interested in find interest in other opportunities that are research and development related out there, because they'll go through the same site. Okay, so again, talking about, we've heard the term solution, summary, and proposal. I think Stephen did a great job of just trying to break those terms apart. They are not synonymous, so make sure you know that these are two completely different parts of the submission in different phases. So with that July 10th deadline, that is specifically on the solution summary. So you have 1 month to do that submission or submissions for various topics, and that will be done through the solution site. So when you get into the solution site, as I mentioned, there's multiple opportunities out there. So with what we're talking about here being SBIR, STTR, you will see that opportunity within other opportunities that are out there as far as the platter or the buffet of options that you can select from with drop-down menus and asking questions. Make sure that you know you're selecting the right SBIR, STTR, or else you're going to be asking a question or potentially applying for an opportunity that has nothing to do with what we're talking about here today. So again, I'm going to demo going through there just to make sure you all know the right areas, what to select, how to ask questions, and how to complete your submission that's required. You've heard us say, do not submit the proposal before your solution summary. So I'm sorry to be repetitive. It's just we're wanting to get that message loud and clear across to all of you, especially because We've got 500 people out here on the line today. If you have not already applied for that account or created that account, I mean, this is instantaneous, assuming you have all of your information. It's very simple to go on to ARPA-H's solution site. So please, I mean, don't do it right now while we're talking, because I want you to get this critical information. You can get back to that site or sam.gov if you're trying to do that UEI registration. Stick with me here for just a little while longer. It will be extremely beneficial for you, for your entity, if you have the key names of personnel out there. We're going to talk about what types of people are needed, but other information regarding your entity, such as physical address, where the planned place of performance will be for where that work will be performed, and like I said, that key personnel. So if you have that key information going in, you shouldn't need more than maybe 15-20 minutes total, depending on the number of key personnel, to create that account is one of those key steps to where you can see the opportunities on ARPA-H's solution site to make that submission. And like I said before, if you've already been in there and you've created an account where you've applied to other opportunities outside of this SBIR STTR, you have already done some of the required steps there in order to make a solution summary submission for this. So you are in good shape. And again, the QR codes are here, and they'll be here with the recording too if you need to come back to it. Okay, so when you get into the solutions site, there are several required questions in there. So I bring this up just to compare this effort to other ARPA-H opportunities that go through the solution site. Don't think it is going to be the same thing, because we had to create new and unique questions for this effort. So make sure you are answering all of the required questions that are indicated as required. And just know, if you're going through here and making multiple submissions, topic 1, topic 2, topic 7, whatever it might be, there's a different set of follow-on questions that are tied to those topics that you select. So the key thing is, make sure you select obviously the right SBIR, STTR effort. That's where we're starting from. And then when you select the topic, there's obviously the specific questions that are going to be affiliated with whatever you selected for that first topic. And again, I'll show that to you in just a minute, so that'll make more sense. The beauty with this site is that it saves where you are. There's multiple pages here, 5 different steps to be exact, from entering information in, adding attachments, key personnel, being able to review what you've put in there, so you can see a summary of what all you've put together for your submission before you hit submit. So the beauty is, all this is saved as you're progressing through here, so you can come back to it. Don't feel like you have to rush this. If you're logging in, it's not like, hey, I've got 10 minutes before this time's out and I can't come back to it, or I'll have to start all over again. The beauty with this site is that it does save your submissions. So again, take your time, make sure the information is accurate, and come back to it, because you can pick up right where you left off. We do have Ask a Question resource. It's in bold at the very, very top right of our site. So you can ask a question, almost like I've fallen and I can't get up. I joke when I say that, but seriously, like Life Alert, for anyone who knew that commercial or that product and service. If you need help on the solution site, try to do the best you can on your own. But if you truly get to a point when you're stuck, click that Ask a Question link, and there's a specific option you can check for solution site support. So you can ask a question, be patient with our folks. I mean, it's not like we have a live help desk where they're going to respond within 10 minutes, but somebody should get back to you fairly quickly, as we do have dedicated folks trying to help make that the best experience possible, and help you if you truly cannot get through the process with the deadline approaching here within the next month. One limitation that we have, and this is specifically just to call out, you are required to have multiple attachments here, and that's indicated by required versus optional attachments. When you are labeling the file titles that you're planning on dragging and drop or uploading to the system as a part of your submission, you can't use spaces or symbols. Those are not allowed. So that's been a common theme. That's just a limitation for uploads. So you might have to just tweak whatever files you've put together for the submissions, and just make sure that you know that is one limitation there as far as those attachments when they're being uploaded. But simply, change the title and upload it. And you'll be able to see this if you can or cannot progress to the next phase of your submission. So you might get hung up there. So we're just bringing that to your attention. The key thing is too, I'm just trying to say, if I'm in a proposer's shoes here, whether it's for one submission or multiple, make sure that you don't force these as quick as you possibly can. Because once you hit submit, it is gone. You'll get an automated response that says, thank you, entity XYZ. We have received your submission. So what I'm trying to tell you is it will create a whole set of headaches for you, a whole set of headaches for us. Make sure the information is accurate. It's where you like it. You've double checked it, triple checked it, because once you hit submit, it is sent. And that's where it is what it is. So going back to that My Activity, like I said, we have that there to where it saves progress, not just for one, but multiple submissions. So you can quickly get back to that specific submission by hitting My Activity, getting back to there when the time is right, whether it's in the same session that you have being within there or have to enter information over the course of multiple hours or multiple days. Stephen had mentioned this before too, just with that limitation. Proposers who are interested in various topics can do more than one submission, but only one submission per submitter per topic. So I just wanted to reiterate that again. That's a critical point. And also, this is not a significant copy and paste exercise. So if you feel like you have a submission that might apply or might be relatable or covered for multiple topics, try to select the best topic that you think is most appropriate based on that submission. Because again, I'm trying to prevent problems for you all and problems for ARPA-H on the review side of the house once these submissions are received. Because like we see with the attendance here, there's a lot of interest here, a lot of submissions. So we want to make sure we have the best from a quality perspective on those submissions, not quantity where there's significant duplication across the board. And I'd mentioned before, just please be patient when you are doing questions, asking, for help with ARPA-H. We will do our best to get back in touch with you as quickly as possible. So with that, I'm going to go through a demo real quick. I'm going to take over the screen for just a minute here. All right, so this is the solutions site. If you follow that QR code or get there from the ARPA-H website, there's multiple ways to get here. This is what it will look like. So for some of you that have been here before, like I said, this is probably familiar to you. You will simply sign in. That's what I'm going to do here just because I already have an account to show for demonstration purposes. But if you are brand new as a small business and this is something where you've never been before, you haven't applied to an ARPA-H opportunity, you're going to want to click create an account. There's several just basic information, your entity name, that type of stuff, because it's just trying to build that profile, like I said before. So if you've been here before, it is very simple to log back in. You've got the login instructions here. If you need more information, click the link that we have here. It's pretty straightforward. I already have an account, so I'm just going to skip ahead here to get in so you all can see what the home page looks like once you are successfully logged in. Notice you have my name up here so you can see that. But I wanted to cover real quick. I had mentioned ask a question in My Activity. By clicking ask a question here with that first dropdown, the first two are going to be most applicable to you. And again, we want you guys to try to figure this out on your own. This is not here to help. If you haven't read that solicitation and there's some critical piece, try your best to do this on your own first. This is really if you've just run into a brick wall and you truly need that support. If you have those questions that are more technical in nature about the topics or about this entire effort with the small business program, here's the first option that you have available to click from. If you are more on the administrative side of the house and you're having challenges either creating an account, logging into your account, some application or attachment is not working that you're trying to upload, that's where you want to click on this second option as it's listed. Here's the solutions site. So think of it more of technical related for that first option with this specific small business program, and then solution site more of the administrative down below. So you have those two options there should you have any questions. My Activity over here, This is where I said if you've had multiple submissions or one submission and you can't complete it at one sitting, go to my activity up here, and there will be a listing where you can see what you've started, what is saved as a draft, and where you can return so that you can get back to finish what you started. Okay, so for the purposes of here, this is what's critical for the next month, and this is why I wanted to demo this specifically for you all, assuming you can successfully log in. Notice you're going to have two options here when you try to start a submission for your first option. Like we said, please do not commingle those terms, solution, summary, and proposal. They are two very separate and distinct terms, so I'm just foot stomping that again. So between now and 1 month ahead, you have the 30 days to do a solution summary submission. So that's what I'm going to click on. And right now you don't have an option within the system of submitting the full proposal too. So you won't be able to find this effort on the solutions site. There's more instructions here, but this is consistent with what I've already shared and what Stephen has already shared as far as what those required elements were, being that UEI that's required from SAM.gov registration and also that small business control ID. Just some general information here, those 5 sections or 5 steps that I was talking about. So these are all required. And again, if you have already been in here before to this site and applied for other opportunities with ARPA-H, your information as far as you personally, your entity, and key personnel that are associated with you, they are already in the system. So you can add new people or select those existing that have already been entered into the system as a part of other submissions. Okay, so going to start a submission. This is the first phase. Here you have the option of going down to your topics. So I'll pause for just a second here so you can all see this. This is where I said make sure that you select the right topic. You heard from the different PMs and personnel on the ARPA-H side of the last hour talk about these topics. We have plenty out here that are not related to SBIR and STTR. So I want to bring everybody's attention, obviously, to just topics 1 through 7. These will change over the next 30 days, and I'm not talking about the SBIR ones. I'm simply talking about all the other options here. So these shall be open for the next 30 days, but make sure you select the right one. So as an example, I'm going to go with topic 1. There's going to be different follow-on questions that are associated with that. So if you select topic 1 or topic 4 or topic 7, there's going to be different follow-on questions there. So again, make sure you select the right effort and the right topic there. In this case, I'm just going to go through here and select a couple options. This is, again, please don't copy and paste. This is not recommended. I'm just trying to go through this purely from a demonstration perspective. You'll be asked to title what your submission is called tied to this. You'll be required to put in estimated months in duration for your project. You'll have required questions tied to animal and human subjects research. So again, this is going to be unique and custom to all of you, but where you see the questions, you will see required at the end where you will not be able to proceed to the next phase for your submission unless you successfully or answer these questions where a field is required or a response to a question is required. Okay, so submitter information. If you've already been into this site before and set this up, this will be auto-generated just based on your account. So I didn't have to enter anything here. Should be the same for all of you. Notice it is saving my draft as I'm going through here. I'm just throwing out a random number here of 500,000 for total funds requested. Another required question here coming is cost share plan as it relates to is ARPA-H plan to fund this whole thing, or is the proposer going to contribute some resources as well? That is a required field. So again, you must select yes or no. I'm just selecting no, and that's just to get through for the next phase here. Here we have the option to type in organizations. I have already been through here just to create some dummy organizations. So I'm going to select one that was tied to a prior submission for a different effort. You will be required to type in that UEI. That's why we said that UEI is required. That's coming from that registration. So it is very beneficial for you all to have that handy. okay? And then being able to type in that UEI and then select which type of business you are. I know many of you will be small businesses, obviously here, but what types? So please select the right option here that is required. You will also be required to put in the organization's physical address. So here, this is just a dummy address, not tied to a real LLC or a real location. But then the question too, as far as where will the place of performance, where will the research or the technical effort be performed? And again, this is primary. I know there could be instances where there's multiple, but again, just try to answer these questions to the best of your ability because it will help us on the review side. Okay, so once you have entered that organization information, you have the ability to go in here for your team members. And I'll just say real quick, please focus on the description here. We tried to provide a little extra content as far as what is the definition of key personnel. I won't read this to you, but hopefully you can see here it's basically anybody that's going to contribute or is expected to contribute to the project in a substantial or measurable way. So this is for you all to decide, not ARPA-H to tell you, but generally if you have principals or co-principals and someone you deem as key personnel, you want to put them in here. We don't think you should try to go through here and put 100 in, but you should definitely put what's commensurate with your organization size and what effort is planned to be required here for your submission. So for this, I'm going to select myself that's already in here. Notice with the information and email, you then are required to select from a drop-down. In this case, I'm just selecting principal investigator, but you can also put some of the other categories that are there as well. If you want to add other people, you can keep going. They'll be saved in here if you've done those prior submissions that I've mentioned before. So in some instances, you're only entering the new information for new personnel, again, that haven't been affiliated. So in this case, I'll just put an individual as a key person. So once you have done what you feel like is appropriate to meet that definition, this is probably where you're going to spend some of the longest time. This is where you'll go back to where we talked about that required information. So I'm putting in just to meet the character limit for this demonstration, and I'm putting in a small business control ID, which is not real, but you all should have one when you're doing your submission just to get through here. And then you can see there's various required questions. So again, I'm just going to select some here. I'm not going to read all these just for the purpose of time. You'll be asked to identify who your technical point of contact is, who your administrative point of contact is, and then stuff like, is this your first time applying to a federal funding opportunity, and have you ever received funding from the federal government? So again, I'm just answering these questions quickly so I can get through these various phases to show you what it looks like. This is the portion where you do need to have your required documents. So we have required uploads, you've got solution summary, and then you've got the support to show that you have registered and have that SBC control ID tied to that registration. So again, we think you should have that information handy, whether you've applied previously in years or just in the last couple of days. Make sure you have that supporting documentation close by because you will need it. And then funding agreement certification. This will be tied to the broad agency announcement with more details there with the posting on sam.gov. And then a foreign disclosure form. And then last but not least, there are some optional uploads. So again, this will not apply to everybody, but if it does, there is one additional certification where you have the option for that additional upload. I'm not going to upload anything, but in this case, because I have not uploaded, especially for those required documents, I cannot proceed. But step 5, assuming we got there with this, that would simply be an overview that would share what you are putting in as far as key personnel, name of your organization, UEI, SBC number, attachments, etc. So it is just that final overview before you hit that official submission button. So with this being said, I did not intend for this to be repetitive, tied to what Steven Snyder had shared just within the last 30 minutes. But again, it is critical for you to get that UEI. If you don't already have one, get that small business control ID if you don't already have one. I mean, apply today if you're interested and want to proceed with some submissions. But then once you've read that broad agency announcement that Steven Snyder was referring to a few minutes ago, go out to the ARPA-H Solutions site there. Try to create a profile if you know you're going to do that submission, because you could really help yourself out with some administrative time down the road, especially if you're planning to make multiple submissions based on those various topics that are out there. But again, I can vouch for our staff on the ARPA-H side. We are trying not to create headaches with this submission process, but our folks are truly very responsive should you have any questions. So we are here to help you all, especially those that are new to doing business with ARPA-H. But thanks for all for being here. And Sam, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Stephen. I really appreciate you joining us and giving us the overview of the solution site. So I really want to thank all of our speakers who've participated in today's Proposers Day. And most importantly, I want to thank all of you who've joined us to learn more about the ARPA-H Small Business Program. I am beyond excited to say that ARPA-H is open for business, especially small business, and I can't wait to see all of your wonderful proposals. As a reminder, please be sure to visit the ARPA-H Small Business Program webpage for more information on the program and the specific SBIR STTR solicitation. And I'll say it again, read the BAA, read the topics. And also, you should sign up for the ARPA-H Vitals newsletter via the ARPA-H website. That way, you'll be able to stay up to date on all of ARPA-H's funding opportunities, including future SBIR topics, but also our large-scale programs that we're launching. I really just want to end by thanking all of you so much for your interest in the ARPA-H Small Business Program and for joining us for our first Proposers Day. Thank you very much.